You're listening to Unfiltered Brew, hosted by Master Cicerone Joe Vogelbacher and brewery founder Eric Flanagan, out of the Sugar Creek Brewing Company in Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome back to our next episode of Unfiltered Brews. Excited to be here today. The holidays approaching and in the tap room is so festive now. We got an amazing Christmas tree up right now. Awesome.
What is that thing, 16 foot?
It's big, it's nice. And thanks to St. Gabe's Men's Club for getting us that tree.
Feel free to get us a smaller one next time though.
I mean, it's nice. It's
occupancy gets cut in half.
Charlotte.
Yeah. Oh, guaranteed. We should put that tree up against something else in Charlotte.
In the spirits of the old days when we did the Christmas trees, we do something kind of similar, I think inspired from your time in the military and my time as well. We'll do a employee appreciation night. So we got that coming up on Monday. And for all of our listeners, the way that works is Eric and I will let everybody that normally works behind the bar off, and usually our wives will join us, or a guest bartender from down the street, or Brendan from the gym, which is they're here and they lease from us. But the owners of the establishment will serve the beer to the employees, and we ask the employees and their employee team to bring all of their friends and whoever. And we charge full price. We don't donate the beer, but whatever we get, and it's open to the public in the register at the end of the night, every cent, including the gross sales and all the tips, we donate back to the team for Christmas bonuses. So, and then the way we work it for the Christmas bonus is the longer you've been here, the more percentage you get of it. So we'll take everybody and rank them by their tenure, and then the people that have been here the longest will get a little bit more for their bonus based on what we collected. So,
did we save the spreadsheet this year?
I don't know. Every year I feel like
we got to make a new spreadsheet.
It's a pain in the butt, but Eric and I usually throw some money into that too. So it's always a fun night, employee appreciation night coming up on Monday. So
it's a long day though.
It is. It gives you appreciation for what they do all the time, right? But I mean, we do get in early in the morning, and then.
Well, I'm going to say it again. You'll get the employees and the friends that come in, and they try to make your life miserable, though. And you got to remind them, hey, by the way, I'm doing this for you, so don't get too crazy. They want to order, a Bahama Breeze and a Mai Tai and a mojito. You don't order a mojito in December. You just want to see me muddle something, It's like, all right, fine. Make this hard on me. That's cool.
I just give them a sugar cookie when they order all that.
Like, well, now we've got liquor and, we've got food. So, it's not, and we just got a new POS. So hopefully the new point of sale is really easy this year.
Yeah.
So
we'll give it a go. And it's nice to be able to serve them for a change, but
yeah, I mean, we end up raising thousands for them, and I mean, you know what? I don't know if they like the cash in the fat envelope at the end more than seeing us sweat.
It's both, definitely.
You think it's 50-50?
I mean,
I think some of them just sit there and grin the whole time, like, man, you can keep my money.
But we have some incredible regulars that came, and actually a couple came last year and left $1,000 tip. Which
they're the ones that make the night. Yeah,
which is just incredible. I mean, that makes your whole entire season. But I always get kind of depressed this time of year because, number one, it seems like the beer sales really dry up after Christmas, and then we go into the worst time of the year for this business, which is January. And the big movement, and I don't blame people because they get burned out, is dry January. So what do you think about that?
So, I was thinking about this. And, we're becoming a decent sized brewery now too. And, hopefully we're even bigger. We had a good year this year. And you start to see the wholesalers clam up beginning of December. And it's probably funny because some of our wholesalers we know for a fact listen to this. So maybe they'll tell me, maybe they'll call me later and tell me I'm friggin' wrong or something. But and not to spew their business, but these wholesalers are massive, millions of dollars, right? Then on top of that, they have millions of dollars of inventory on the floor, right? And at the end of the year, what do we all have to do? Balance our books, end of year numbers, take inventories, what we started with, what we sold, what we ended with. So I bet, and the wholesalers are better at it than us. I bet the logistical side is that by December, they're looking at their pars going, all right, let's run these babies way down. Let's get rid of all this old beer that nobody wants, the chocolate brownie, the scorpion stout, and then let's count everything when we have the least amount of inventory, and then let's turn around and start the new day off. So
I mean, that's business, right?
you think that's what it is? And then you roll in the dry January is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I don't know. I think you have to going in the dry January. I mean, it's good to give your liver a break. I'm not saying it isn't, right? But moderation is important, and I think supporting your local brewery is important. But I guess now what you're seeing is a trend moving away from alcoholic beers and then doing some kind of LTOs, the limited time offerings, where it might be something like a non-alcoholic product. Have you seen the new ones that White Claw's putting out?
Yes.
So it's a seltzer with no alcohol. Think about that for a second. A non-alcoholic.
So it tastes like a seltzer with alcohol.
A non-alcoholic seltzer.
So it's carbonated water.
But it costs the same as an alcoholic seltzer.
So what are you trying to do? You trying to tank the sales so nobody buys it?
Of
Hey, people, you're buying carbonated water.
A non-alcoholic seltzer.
That's
Tell me
crazy.
what that is. It's carbonated water.
Yeah, okay.
With flavoring. So what's the difference between that and soda, which is half the price?
Oh, nothing. I mean, look, when somebody, no offense to people that do them, but when I heard how much hop water was, I was like, oh man, what kind of hops you putting in that?
Well, hops are expensive.
I get that. Yeah. I get that. But I mean, when it came on, it was like, oh boy, let me pay $15 a 4-pack for this or whatever it is, But a non-alc carbonated soda, carbonated beer.
A White Claw has zero. They're called White Claw Zero.
White Claw should sponsor this because we've already said White Claw more than we've said Sugar Creek. But I didn't know that. I have not seen it. I know for a fact, Good for Athletic Brewing, they're about the same age as us. I was looking at IRI numbers. I mean, they are one of the largest breweries in the country. Yeah, they don't even put what is it? So explain to me actually.
They do a great job with that.
Explain to me what a non-alc is, because I think you correct me sometimes when I say alcohol-free. Is there alcohol in a non-alc beer?
I don't know the laws on it, but my understanding is that you have to be under 0.5% ABV. So less than 0.5% ABV. So yes, it has alcohol in it, a NA beer, non-alcoholic beer. An alcohol-free beer is different. That has to be zero. And that's much more difficult to get completely zero. I mean, some bread, when you ferment bread, has alcohol in it.
Really?
Yeah. So it's hard to get it completely out.
So we've never done one. Do you know how to do one?
I mean,
what's the process?
I'm learning, just like everybody. You kind of you learn about these things as you go. But the general idea is, number one is you can adjust certain brewing parameters to things like the mash and the mash temperature to change the enzymatic profile that's in the wort. So what I mean by that is you can emphasize certain sugars that don't ferment as well versus the simple sugars that do ferment well. So that's one way to do it. So that's adjusting the mash temperature. That will make a wort profile that doesn't favor alcohol production. That's one way. Another way is use a specialized yeast. And the specialized yeast will ferment the beer but not produce a lot of ethanol. And they have that now. And nowadays they're doing even more GMO type yeast that are specifically engineered to not produce alcohol. That's one thing. But you also want the flavor of alcohol. So it's important that the yeast gives off things like ethyl acetate, which is on the nose of normally that you'd get from ethanol, to kind of give the drinker the idea that there's alcohol in it, even though when there isn't. And then the other thing that I've seen brewers do, and a way you can get the alcohol to stop producing, is by arresting the fermentation. Now you can do that a couple different ways. The fermentation occurs with it being at the right temperature. So you can drop the temperature down to as cold as possible and stall the fermentation on purpose. And now you don't have any fermentation. So you start the fermentation, then stall it. Another way some brewers do it is they'll take fermenting beer that would normally produce alcohol, and then right when it starts fermenting to the point where it produces alcohol, they'll centrifuge all the yeast out. So the yeast are gone. That's the same sort of thing. That's like a mechanical arresting of the fermentation. So these are just concepts to me, like how you could do it, but because I haven't done this before, but I'm looking forward to. I'm having a conversation with Dr. Bill Simpson next week to talk about how he does it for the bigger breweries, and maybe learn a thing or two from that. So I don't want to put out a product unless I know it's going to be good. So it's important to kind of get that background research in before you jump in and do it. So another key critical thing is when you're making this product, because the non-alcoholic beer usually has some residual fermentable sugars, especially if you arrest the fermentation, right? If you drop the temperature down and stall it out, then when the customer gets it and warms it up, it could restart fermenting.
Yep.
And if it restarts fermenting, you'd have the cans exploding, right? So one way to make sure that it doesn't restart fermenting is by using a pasteurization process. So we're the only brewery in Charlotte that I'm aware of that has a tunnel pasteurizer. So we'll can the non-alcoholic beer, run it through the pasteurizer, heat it up, and that will kill any yeast that's in there, residual yeast, so that when you warm it up, it doesn't start fermenting in the can again and explode. So
we should just make one for January.
Yeah.
And call it January.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my mom doesn't drink, so she'd like it, but she won't drink it even if it has 0.5% ABV. But it always makes me think about diversifying your options. So we're in a very crowded space these days, and I think it's important to kind of transition into being not just beer, but maybe being beer and things, other things. So I'm thinking about that always, and how we can be a world-class beverage maker.
Everything liquid.
I mean, beer and other things, right? So we have that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur, is to reinvent yourself and diversify and kind of bring in different streams of income. So I'm interested in the seltzers. I mean, it's funny, like people, when they find out that we make some seltzers, they like to ask me a lot of questions about them. And these are really sugar ferments. So you mix sugar and water and ferment that, and you have a really clean ending liquid, which all the sugar is converted into ethanol. So now you've got ethanol and sugar, ethanol and water, and no sugar anymore because the yeast ate it. And that's the base for your seltzer. So I tell people that are really concerned about their health, they talk all the time like, well, I just drink White Claws because they're low in calories. Your beer has 140 calories per 12 ounce, and the White Claw only has 85, right? So I pose this question to you and the listeners. Let's say you had a slice of whole grain bread, right? And it's 140 calories. Or you had a Three Musketeers bar, which has 90 calories in it. Which one is healthier? Is it the 140 calorie whole grain bread or the 90 calorie Three Musketeer?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Because there's no
fibers
nutritional.
in the wheat though actually cancel out some of the calories, or no, they cancel out the carbs. But yeah, absolutely.
What I'm saying is,
There's nutrients and things in the bread that are not in the candy.
so beer is like the whole grain bread, craft beer, and seltzer is like the candy bar. It's just usually alcoholic water back sweetened with various flavors. Not ours though, we make from the raw ingredients. The beer, on the other hand, is a cereal grain that's been fermented. So you have proteins, vitamins, minerals, all kinds of other things other than the alcohol in there that help bring some nutritional value to the table. Whereas a lower calorie seltzer, yeah, it's lower calorie, but it's completely devoid of any nutritional value, right? So if I was going to drink one or the other, I would take the 140 calorie. It's kind of like the Diet Coke versus Coke analogy they have these days. Which one's healthier?
Which one is healthier?
I don't know. There's debate on it, but I mean, I know our good friend, the veterinarian.
Oh yeah.
He tells us all the time that he'd rather have the full flavored Coke than the diet one because it doesn't have all that artificial stuff in it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy to drink either.
I just heard a Huberman lab though. A lot of those artificial sweeteners, some of them are still pretty decent. They're not bad for you.
Really?
Oh yeah. There's a couple that I'm definitely not gonna try and go down that rabbit hole on YouTube because I would get talked in circles. But I know there's a lot that are bad for you. We stay away from in my
Well, people
household.
love it when we tell them wrong stuff on here.
Well, what's the one that's from the plant right now that's it's
the sugarcane one is sucralose. It's a triple chain, I believe, sugar.
and the aspartame one's not good, right?
I'm not sure. So you have sucralose, aspartame's the other big one.
The one with the S? I almost said sativa.
Those are the two ones I really know, aspartame and sucralose. And I think sucralose is healthier for you. But it's interesting, and maybe we can get Bill on the podcast to tell the story. But he knows the story of how they discovered that. And I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm going to give you the basic idea. So this artificial flavoring, the sugar substitute, was discovered at a food science laboratory at a university. And the professor who was doing the work there at the lab had some interns, okay? And they were experimenting with some new molecules. And the intern came to the professor, who was of Indian descent with a thick Indian accent. And the intern came to the professor and said, Dr. So-and-so, I just want to let you know we completed the test on this, and we've resulted in this new compound, and it's all good news. It's exactly what we thought, or whatever. And he said, oh, that's great. And on the way out, he told the intern, test it. Okay, that's good, test it. So the intern didn't hear test it. He heard taste it because of the thick accent. So the intern did what the boss said and tasted it, okay? And when the boss came back after his errand, he said to the intern, he said, did you test it? And he goes, yeah, I tasted it, and it was really sweet. And the doctor said, oh, no, don't taste it. That could be, it could be poisonous. I said, test it, not taste it. And he said, well, I did taste it, and it's really sweet. You should try it. So he accidentally consumed some, and they discovered, holy cow, this stuff is super, super sweet. I think it's 30 times sweeter than sugar per unit.
Do you think there's breweries out there that are using it in the brew process?
Oh, yeah, I think you could use it. Yeah.
What do you think it does to the flavor of the beer?
Well, it enhances it, I think. I think it brightens it up. It's kind of like adding salt to a dish, right? It's a seasoning, kind of, the sucralose. So the fascinating thing is the university that discovered this, okay, and whoever's listening, chime in and correct me on the story, but this turned into multiple billion dollar discovery. Yeah. Once they analyzed it more and realized they had discovered a non-caloric sweetener.
And are the two physicists sitting in the lab still doing nothing, or did they get any of that money?
I don't know. It's a good question. See, unfortunately, when you're under the university's payroll and you're working for them under a university-sponsored things, a lot of times what you discover is the property of the university. That's part of the deal.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like, I used to work at the shipyard, and I worked at on the nuclear power plant, and they would always ask us for OFIs. We talked about it, opportunity for improvement. And when we'd submit them, oh, you can do this and save money, or you can do this and improve the process, or whatever. Sometimes that could result in millions of dollars of savings for the shipyard. It's a big company. So shipyard, of course, kept all that money so they could keep you gainfully employed. But if you did one that resulted in millions of dollars, then occasionally throw you a bonus of something like 10 or 15,000.
That's not bad.
But it's something,
Yeah.
at least in an appreciation. So anyway, that's my thoughts on all that. I mean, another thing I wanted to say is, we just finished the Master Cicerone exam again, and I always love following that because there's some great people doing it. And I didn't get a chance to proctor this year, which I was kind of sad about.
No one passed last year, right?
No, we had some people pass last year.
2 years ago, maybe nobody passed.
They had people that passed, and then this year was a record number. We had 6 candidates pass. So,
that's more
part of you
than
might
ever.
think, oh, well, maybe the exam got easier. No, it didn't get easier. The quality of the candidates were top notch. So I'm super proud to be in a group with these people. They're all industry experts, and we even have Jen Blair, I think, is from the Charlotte area. She just passed, which is awesome. So our friend Ryan, he passed, I believe, last year, and we have Dave down from Louisiana passed, and a lot of good, great people excited for them to be part of the club. So shout out to all the new Master Cicerones. Congratulations on passing.
Do you guys do like a Master Cicerone party throughout the year, or you guys just meet up at certain places?
There ought to be. I mean, we've been kind of cordoned off into the brewery recently, but there ought to be a party. You're all invited down.
We should do one. Remember a long time ago we did that really cool
Tap takeover?
we did a Master Cicerone tap takeover where all the Master Cicerones got to pick their favorite beer, and then we made the beer menu. Maybe we should do that. We should try to do like an annual Master Cicerone gathering.
Yeah.
And then everybody picks their favorite beer. Or at least for the new ones.
Yeah, we had a lot of great people, a lot of really smart, talented people pass. It was a great year for the program. So thankful to all.
Congratulations,
Congratulations,
Master
to all.
Cicerones. Make sure you trademark it and put the copyright next to it. That's a big thing.
Now you have to spend the rest of your life explaining to everybody what a Master Cicerone is. I told that to Shelley, who just passed from Sam Adams, amazing, sharp lady. She kind of giggled. But yeah, so that's.
So what's the official number now? Do you know it? It's like 26 or something, 25?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know.
You were 19, and then there was
two more
after you.
21.
So probably
6 more.
26, 27?
27-ish.
Okay.
In that range. I might miss some people.
Tell us in the comments below. Ring the bell. Give us a thumbs up.
So we have we brought another tank in recently.
Oh yeah, speaking of fat turkeys.
Yeah, we brought another tank in. That's always cool to do. And a 90-barrel tank, so about 3,000 gallons of product can go in there.
You know what's funny? You know what happens every year when we take that thing off the truck? When it's sitting on its side, it doesn't look like the right size. Every year, every time we get these things, sometimes it's twice a year, sometimes it's not. So I walked out into the back and the brewers were on the loading dock scratching their heads, and Tim's like trying to find a measuring tape. He's like, I think they sent us the wrong one. And I'm like, buddy, that's how they always look. But when you stand that thing up, it goes way up there.
Yeah, it's a scary process standing those up. But man, we got it up somehow. I don't know how, but we did. So I always love showing those because when you come into the brewery and you see what we have going on, you can kind of see the progression of our company growing, where we have the smaller tanks, the medium-sized tanks, and then the larger tanks. So one of the questions I get a lot when I'm showing people back there for the tour is, why are the tanks back here so much bigger than the ones in the front where you boil the beer?
That's a good observation.
Yeah, so they're like, well, these tanks are gigantic, and the ones in the front where you make the wort are just so small. It's like, are you putting different kinds of beer in them? So the answer to that is no. We're putting the same kind of beer, but the fermentation takes us. So how long does it take to go from grain to glass? And that's around 21 days. The mega breweries can do it as short as 4 to 8, depends on what you're producing. But ours takes time. It takes 21 days on average. And most of the time that the beer is conditioning is spent in the fermenter. Now, to make the wort, we can make 500 gallons in about an 8-hour shift. If we do 4 in a row, we can compress that time a little bit and do like a 16-hour shift. We can do 2,000 gallons. So what we'll do in the front of the house where we're making the wort before it ferments is we'll make a bunch of batches because we can do it quick. And then we use the big tanks to hold that, bigger tanks to hold it while it's fermenting, which takes the longer time. So when you see the big tanks in the back with the V-shaped bottom, those are the fermenters where you're storing it for upwards of 21 days while it ferments, conditions, ages, and lagers. So that's one of the questions that people ask a lot. And
the other question people always ask too is, how do you control the temperature in those things? They don't even realize the temperatures. I mean, it's basically got its own central air unit, and people don't even realize it. When I love to let them touch one, and then I let them touch one that's in the middle of cold crashing, because the temperature is just totally different on those things, and people just can't fathom that. That was when I realized. That was when Tim told me that in Europe real estate's really expensive, so a lot of times they'll put their tanks outside.
Yeah, I mean traditionally the lagers were that means to store the lager type beer was fermented in caves to keep it cool, because fermentation actually gives off heat. So part of the equation, if you look at the chemical equation for fermentation, you'll see that sugar produces ethanol and carbon dioxide and heat. There's excess heat, right? So it's exothermic. If you let the yeast just ferment at room temperature, it'll ferment really, really fast and make all kinds of flavors that might not be desirable. You want a controlled fermentation, and one of the things that the brewers does is control the temperature so the yeast doesn't kill itself and it can be reused again. And number two is that we can control the flavor of the finished product. And the biggest way, one of the biggest ways we can influence that flavor is with the temperature. So the way we do it is we have that big refrigeration unit, like you said. It has glycol inside of it, and glycol is the type we use, polypropylene glycol, is a food grade antifreeze, basically. And it you can drink it; it's totally safe, and it goes around the outside of the tanks. That is controlled with the solenoid, and that keeps the temperature right where we want it. So for ales, it's around room temperature, 68 degrees. But if we didn't have that, it would go all the way up to a 90 or 100. And then lagers is a little bit lower, around 50 degrees, 50 to 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's the main difference. So for types of beer, you really just have ales, which are a certain type of yeast, lagers, certain type of yeast, okay, and what I call mixed culture or mixed fermented products. Those are your wild ones. That's like anything that's in the air that gets in there, your lactobacillus and stuff like that, that gives the beer a tart kind of flavor. So yeah, the exothermic. So it gives off heat, and that's why we have it. So when you're doing those tours and you have people touch it and the tank's super cool or sweating on the side, it's usually because we're lagering that beer, and that's kind of conditioning it and getting the flavors to meld together and letting the solids drop out so you get something nice and bright like this one. And the temperature, having the right temperature is critical to that. So even if you had it outside, you would be subject to Mother Nature, right? So you'd want to make sure that you can keep that tank warm enough too, right? So that's a consideration. If you're going to put your fermenters outside, you need to make sure that the outside temperature is such that it doesn't drop the temperature of the beer to the point where it'll stall fermentation.
Yep.
So you might, I'm not sure, or maybe someone can comment on it, but I think that you need the ability to be able to warm it up and cool it down, the tanks.
Oh, I'm sure.
If it's outside.
So, I mean, if you had a brewery in Alaska, you probably wouldn't be running glycol into the jacketed tank. You'd probably be running steam.
Warm water, maybe.
Yeah.
Steam. That's a good thing. So I heard this story in Brazil when I was down there judging. And I don't remember the name of the brewery, but what happened there was a brewery was using ethylene glycol, I believe, which is actually antifreeze, like the kind you put in your car, which is poisonous.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's cheaper than polypropylene glycol is very expensive. And they had a leak in the jacket on their tank, and it leaked in antifreeze into their beer, and they served it, and 3 people died.
Wow.
Yes, so they had an investigation, okay, and they found out that they were using a poisonous type of glycol in there, and it was a big, big, big deal in Brazil. So they now have mandated that people have to use food grade refrigerant. So I'm not sure why we don't have mandates for that, or if we do in the brewery, but it seems to me like an important thing to do. You know, they just had somebody die in Winston-Salem. Did you hear about this?
No.
Yeah. So a brew pub in Winston-Salem a few weeks ago, somebody came in to clean the draft lines and left in the caustic cleaner, which is the cleaner, and served it to somebody, and they drank a pint of it and died. And 3 other people got really sick.
I mean, that
was Winston-Salem.
Man, that's close to us. We probably know the company that's cleaning or not, or the people cleaning. I mean,
yeah,
that's tough, man.
Yeah, so that's a really tragic situation, right? And it just goes to show you need to be professional about doing it. So our team, when they asked me about it, I said, hey, you can use pH strips when you're finished cleaning. Test the pH, because caustic cleaner has a very basic pH. So you test it and make sure that when you're done rinsing the lines, that it's a neutral pH when it comes through there before you serve the beer. Even when we rinse everything really well, and then we use all of our food grade safe stuff at the brewery, we still, the first case or two of product that comes off the line, we always dump it just as a precaution, just to make sure, a final precaution. But yeah, it's a dangerous business and it's important. And I imagine there'll probably be regulations coming down the pipeline for that.
I thought I remember a long time ago in Bill Simpson's class, you and him were talking about this, and that was probably along the first couple of times what you had probably asked, but he was saying that one of the larger breweries, if it was probably food safe, one of the larger breweries overseas accidentally put tons
Yeah, you got a good memory.
of glycol,
Yeah.
and they didn't
That was a
find
long
out.
time ago.
Yeah, find out till later, and that was when
That was Heineken.
okay. Yeah, Bill was using him as he's like, I remember, in his, what is he, Scottish or Irish?
Yeah, Scottish.
It's not gonna kill you, Joe. So and so dumped 5 million gallons into their beer before they even knew it.
For a year.
Yeah, for a year.
It was going into the Heineken. That was polypropylene glycol. Now, you can drink that all day long. It's fine. It's actually a additive in many foods. They use it in foods.
Huh. For what?
I'm not sure.
How about that?
Fillers?
But there's no flavor to it.
No flavor. It doesn't
And there's
taste.
no smell to it.
No smell. So what we do to make sure that we're not putting it into the beer because it's expensive and we don't want leaks and we don't want to dilute our product with glycol. What we do is we add blue food coloring, strong blue food coloring to the glycol. So if there is a leak, it'll change the beer from this yellow color, golden color, to green, roughly. It also will leak on the floor, and you can see the blue dye if it comes out the back of the jacket. So that's one way we make sure that we don't have a leak. We also have a level sensor on the glycol reserve in the back. So if we see the level drop, we know it's going somewhere, and in which case we would investigate. And we get that level sensor is hooked up to the internet, so we have IoT on that, and we'll get a text message if that level drops.
Yeah, I remember when Bill was saying, I remember going, man, didn't they notice like the cost of glycol went up that year? Or
I think that's how they found it.
yeah, I mean,
Like, holy cow, we're using tons of it. Because,
man, guys, where's this going?
I mean, this stuff's like $1,500 a drum.
Well, I mean, if you don't find it leaking in your warehouse, which we do at times, there's only one other place it could be going.
Yeah, I mean,
Into the beer, right?
you always have leaks because the pipes that go in are, you rarely would have a leak into the beer. It would be something like a freak situation. But externally, you can have them on the delivery tubes because of the temperature going from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold. So think about heating, expanding. When you do that, the fittings tend to loosen up, and you can get some weeping from that. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a crazy situation. So feel bad for the person that got sick in Winston-Salem. But
yeah, horrible to hear. I hope everything's all right with that.
Yeah.
I mean, man.
So another thing that people ask me a lot when you're out and doing these tours is about the water in Charlotte.
I've heard, and I'll never forget when you and I were opening the brewery. We were touring the breweries in Asheville, and they were bragging about the water table that they're on and how great it was. So hearing you start to talk about it made me feel good too. But we've got a pretty good water system here too to support that, don't we?
Oh yeah. I mean, one thing you got to think about is where is your water coming from that you drink every day and that's in your products? Where is it coming from?
So you're saying that people ask you about our water on the
tours?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Do you know where ours comes from?
The city of Charlotte, baby.
I know, but where do they get it?
From the sewers, right? I mean, doesn't everything run off into one place and then over here by the mountain bike trails, and then we filter it out and give it back?
Oh, you mean like the rain?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the Catawba River and all that isn't that our reservoir?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So basically, my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, but you have a variety of ways you can get it. If it rains down, usually that water from the clouds goes into the ground and then goes into the water table, right? Or you might have a reservoir, a river, or a lake, or something like that has fresh water, right? Ours is from the Catawba River Basin. So if the water is filtering down through the soil, that's where it usually picks up like all those minerals that end up into the beer, whatever's in the soil. And being that we're in the Carolinas, we have red clay. And red clay doesn't give off a lot of things.
It stains though.
Yeah, and so the water will go through that. It doesn't add a lot of minerals to the water, and then by the time we get it, it doesn't have much. There's not much to it. So one of the issues is, like, in brewing, you don't want alkaline water. Alkaline water makes really astringent beer. So you want soft, preferably. I shouldn't say soft or hard. You want water that doesn't have too much residual alkalinity. Now, you do want hard water if you're making IPAs or other styles, right? And soft water helps for certain types of pilsners. So what we have in Charlotte is super, super soft. It doesn't have much of anything in it, but it does have chlorine. So we take the water from Charlotte, filter it through a activated charcoal filter, get rid of the chlorine, okay, and then that goes into our beer. And then from there, we'll add salts, okay, brewing salts, which will increase the hardness up or down depending on what we're making. The more salts that we add, calcium sulfate, calcium carbonate, these sort of things, which are naturally in the ground as well, will help brighten the flavors in IPAs or increase the sweetness in beers like our double and stuff like that. So the brewers in Charlotte have a really great blank palette to work with, and we're fortunate to have this great water here in Charlotte.
So you're saying our water is better than Asheville's water?
Well, I have to know more about Asheville's water to.
I remember
to
being
comment.
on Highlands tour years ago, and they were talking about the freshwater deposit that the Asheville's right over, and they're getting it right out of the mountain,
Spring water.
right out of the mountain. So
I mean, the big breweries, the Sierra Nevada and New Belgium, they moved there for a reason. So water is probably part of it. A lot of the bigger breweries will do what's called reverse osmosis filtration. Yeah. And they'll push the water through a semi-permeable membrane and take everything out of it. So it's just pure H2O on the other side. Then, depending on what they're making, they know exactly what the water profile is going to be. And they'll add those minerals to it to replicate the water from different parts of the world where historically certain types of beers would have been made.
my wife and I got a zero water filter. It's like Brita on steroids, basically. It's got a little meter on it, and you're supposed to test your tap water and then other waters, and then you use it on this zero. The water filter is expensive, and you get zero. The problem now is when my wife and I go anywhere, to the YMCA to work out, we're at our kids' soccer tournament in Greensboro, you can taste things in water that you are not used to, because we drink mostly water from home. And it was funny because, our wives have tasted a lot of beer with us over time. We're at a restaurant in, I'll say, middle of the state. I'm not going to say what city it was in. And they sold our beer. And my wife took a sip of her water. She goes, "Taste this." I'm going, "What?" She goes, "It tastes like mildew or mold or something."
Ooh.
And I was going, "Really?" And I took a sip and I was like, "Oh boy." And I realized right away they probably hadn't cleaned their soda guns. And they were just, and the problem was, we were at our kids' soccer tournament. No one else could taste it except us. People thought we were absolutely insane. And I'm going, well, that's probably because we've been on the Brita water filter and the refrigerator filters for years, and now we're literally drinking zero water coming out of that thing. So
that's cool. Oh, on a side note, when they used to offer the Master Cicerone exam up in Chicago, I would always, have to use the restroom because you're drinking so much water and beer during the exam. You drink a beer, taste a beer, and then you rinse your mouth with water and then taste another one. So you're ingesting beer and water the whole time. Inevitably, you have to go to the bathroom. So you go to the bathroom, then wash your hands in there afterwards, of course. And I'd smell my hands, and I could smell the water because you're really finely tuned at the time. And I would in Chicago, I'd get a geosmin smell. And geosmin is the smell of earth, or most people recognize it as BEET, BEET, BT. So, like, imagine you're taking red beets.
Oh yeah. Oh,
and boiling them.
Mm-hmm.
The smell of beets, which is they've been in the earth and absorbing the earth. That smell is in the water, and that'll carry over into the finished beer. So,
and you're saying geosmin?
Geosmin.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that's one that's something the water up there for sure has that the brewers need to be concerned about. We don't have that problem. We don't have to worry about geosmin in the beer, but we do test the water quarterly just to make sure that the alkalinity hasn't risen too high and make sure we make the necessary adjustments for the beers that we're producing throughout the year, because the water content changes throughout the year. A lot to think about.
Yeah, I mean, when you think, I mean, most people just think you mash up your grains, you add a little hops, you stick it in a pot, and you're done. I mean, America does what America does best. They just refine it to the point where you're going, wait a minute. So now you're reverse osmosising the water.
Yeah.
Then you're selecting grains from all over the country. You're making sure that your mill,
or the world,
you're making sure that your mill is right.
Perfect.
I remember the mill back in the day was a problem for us because that's efficiency. And then you're going through 3 different, mash tun, kettle. Then you're adding your hops, and then you don't even have beer. That's what's crazy. You've just made wort.
Yep.
Then
Fermentation is really the art.
I mean,
carbonating, filtering, transferring, packaging, distributing. So much work goes into this, Eric.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then we have the guy that's driving in the back seat watching you do all the work and saying, this sucks.
Yeah.
You guys should go. You guys are in the wrong career.
I don't think so. To be honest with you, we usually do not have anybody that tells us our beer is bad. We literally, and look,
they're around.
I'm not really bragging. I'm just saying people know us for, if anything, they know us for quality. I mean, this, we just got in, what is it, Craft Beer and Brewing magazine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
we just got nominated for one of the top Abbey Ales breweries in the world.
How cool is that?
I mean, I got to tell you, it's not as cool as when we actually beat these guys at the World Championships, at the Craft Brewers, Best of Craft Beer, the U.S. Open. I mean, the guys that are way above us, we've been beaten for years. That's why I was a little upset that we were so low on the list. But I mean, maybe somebody will get the list right at some point.
To share the list with people that have been brewing this style that you're working with since the 1800s is quite a feat, I think. So it was cool to be on the list, and a lot of times
not as cool as beating West Veteran or beating these guys, Trappist, Roachford. I mean, beating them is way better.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that people don't realize too is that a lot of the things that you read in brewing magazines are all paid for ads by the people that get their names in there. So you might think that it's honest, but most of the time these things are paid for, and I can tell you, we didn't pay for that. So it was cool to be on the list. But
it is crazy when people don't realize
everything, all your media is paid for.
Hey, we're getting ready to come out with this best of magazine. Would you like to buy a half page, a whole page? We're pretty sure you'll make the list if you do. And then the ones that get the full pages are in the top 2 or 3.
Terrible.
I mean, look, it's the way the world works.
I mean, it's a strategy, right? Anyway,
it's been a good year.
It has been. I'm happy about it, man. And maybe I'll take a minute and tell you a little bit about this beer that we're drinking. What do you think, Eric?
It's a good idea right before we cheers it, before we toast it.
Yeah, Christmas toast. Yeah, so this is Sugar Cookie. This is our seasonal beer. It's 8% alcohol. The idea was to kind of make a beer with the flavors of a sugar cookie and biscuity, bready, a little bit sweet, not too sweet though, and kind of a golden color like you would when you bake a sugar cookie and get that nice golden color on the back. I love the label. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
The Christmas beers these days, there's starting to be more and more of them, and people are having a lot of fun with the labels, so we wanted to have fun with the labels. So,
what is Santa drinking there? What's in his hand?
That's actually one of our, what do you call? We've got the big white ale glasses here. We do the 20 ounce.
Oh yeah.
What?
It's like a wheat beer glass.
It's a big wheat beer glass. So he's basically got a beer in his hand and he's getting sucked up into a sugar cookie UFO. Beam me up Scotty style. So we thought that was humorous and fun, and we took some Christmas elements from all the Christmas cards we've done over the past, and we put the Santa Claus hat on there. But it's actually it's supposed to be a fun beer. We've done really good selling it. People like it. The one thing we want to do is make it look very Christmassy, and I think we do. And as you turn the can, you realize a giant sugar cookie that's a a giant UFO made of a sugar cookie is beaming Santa Claus up. I mean, if that helps you pick the beer up off the shelf and then,
Yeah, so
sip it.
this is a cool beer to pair with anything, all the sweet stuff that you have during the holidays. You think, hey, pairing something that is supposed to be sweetly inspired with sweets, that would be too much. But no, that's not how it works. It actually works really well together. So try it with any of your holiday cookies. Add a little sip of sugar cookie. You're going to be surprised how well they go together.
It's got a little bit of dryness to it too, so it does clean you out. And the thing
and we don't add any sugar to it.
It's I'm actually realizing I'm drinking it a lot like an IPA. When I drink my IPAs and stuff, I like to give it a swirl to maybe make the bouquet come out, and then I take a sip. So this whole time I've been kind of giving it a swirl, giving it a swirl, and then you get a little vanilla bean and smells coming out of it. But
always, put your nose in the glass and get that smell. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Merry Christmas.
We'll see you in the next
year.